Okay, good evening, everybody. It's good to see each of you here. I hope this is informative and interesting. We're going to talk tonight about Winlink, global radio email. Some of you probably know more about this subject than I do, and that's okay. I hope you get a little something interesting out of it. Winlink is, in fact, email over amateur radio. It's the ability to send email to any email address anywhere, even when there's no internet. The system was first used by ships and mariners and has developed into a worldwide system for sending email, which includes remote areas or emergency situations where there's little or no power. Some of the disaster organizations that use this are the Southern Baptist Disaster Relief, the American Red Cross, the Salvation Army. One of the famous examples of this being used in a rescue situation involves the tall ship Bounty. I don't know if any of you remember, but back during Superstorm Sandy in 2012, the tall ship Bounty, which was a replica of the Bounty of storied fame, the ship had been built for the 1962 film Mutiny on the Bounty, and thereafter had been turned kind of into a tourist attraction to preserve the ship and give people an opportunity to experience the days of sail. And during the storm, or just before the storm, they had taken the Bounty out of the harbor in New England where they were to try to get it down to Florida ahead of the storm, and ended up getting caught because it was so violent. And during the course of that storm, they lost all communication, had tried to notify the Coast Guard that they were taking on water and that the pumps were not keeping up. And finally, the captain found an email address for the Coast Guard, and using Winlink, was able to notify the Coast Guard of their situation. An hour later, there was a Coast Guard C-130 overhead, and the ship had rolled over on its side. They ended up out of 16 crew members. The captain was lost and never recovered. A descendant of Fletcher Christian died of injuries sustained, and 14 were rescued as a result of their use of Winlink to contact the Coast Guard. That's actually the story that first piqued my interest in Winlink for emergency use in things like post-storm and disaster communications. So let me get that out of the way here. But that's just kind of a little interesting introduction to Winlink. So what does the Winlink system offer for emergency communications? Well, the first is flexibility. As we'll see in just a minute when we look at the block diagram for this system, you can do internet-only, Telnet, direct connections between the radio and a server, or you can do radio link to email. You can do a radio-only connection. You can do peer-to-peer connection, radio to radio. It has a familiar and simple email client interface that I'll show you in a few minutes. It has great interoperability. It connects from different types of systems. It'll bridge different radio capabilities. You can use it on UHF, VHF, and HF, and it has seamless integration with internet email. You can send an email to someone over Winlink and have them reply directly back to your Winlink account, and both send and receive that email over VHF, UHF, or HF. It has geographical dispersion and redundancy. There are 5 servers, and we'll talk about those in a minute, located all over the world, so it's dispersed. It uses a standard email format with typical features. It allows for binary file attachments, photos, PDFs, and spreadsheets. It has automatic message compression and decoding. It has a whitelisting capability to prevent spam. It's time independent. It has the ability to collect messages while it's unattended. It has good operation at most power levels. It's not limited by station-to-station propagation. It's got message logging and ICS report integration, and it has forms and templates that we'll also talk a little bit more about. So what do you need to make Winlink work? Well, you need a Winlink email address, and you go to winlink.org and you can set up an account. They will issue you a Winlink email address. Usually it is your call sign at winlink.org because, of course, call signs are distinctive. And from there, you download the software. And I'm not going to go through how to install the software tonight. There are a number of videos on the internet that are more than capable of walking you through that. Everybody's radio is a little bit different. Everybody's sound card interface is probably a little different, and their computer's a little different. So I'm not going to go through a setup. I just want to talk to you about what it is and what it's capable of and give you a brief demonstration of it tonight. So you need a Winlink email address. Mine is ki4meu@winlink.org. Anybody that wants to shoot me an email from their cell phone can do that, and we'll see it come in later. A computer with Winlink Express installed. It used to be called RMS Express. It's RMS stands for Radio Message Server, but it's now Winlink Express, and you need a sound card interface, and you can use something like the Signal Link, for instance, which is available to interface. You can interface that with almost any HF rig and probably UHF, VHF as well. I'm not trying to do that, but it's available, and it is basically a sound card interface. MFJ makes one as well. I'm using it with the IC7300, which has a sound card interface integrated into it. It connects to my computer with a USB cable. However, I'm not going to demonstrate that tonight because in the course of practicing this, I discovered that in order for my audio to work properly, I have to switch between the IC7300's audio device and the Winlink or the Zoom audio device. So I'm not going to do a live demonstration. We'll use Telnet to demonstrate it in a little bit. So those are the three things that you need. You need a Winlink account with an email address, you need a computer with Winlink Express installed, and you need a sound card interface to connect the two together. There are other ways to do it other than that, but that's the simplest of setups. So let's talk about normal Winlink operation. Can everybody see the block diagram? Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. There we go. So there are 5 common message servers, CMSs. There's 2 in the US, there's 1 in Canada, there's 1 in Europe, and there's 1 in Australia. These common message servers are linked through the internet to each other and to the RMS gateways, radio message server gateways, that we'll talk about in a second. But they're connected through the internet. The term is escaping me. They basically update each other so that all of the entire system is replicated on each of the common message servers. So whatever CMS you end up attaching to through the internet, through your RMS, you end up that same message you sent ends up propagated across all 5 of the common message servers. So you connect to them through the internet by means, in the case of an RF connection, to a RMS gateway. There are a number of those. I'll see if I can get to a, let's see, where was that? Let's see if I can get this. Let's see, here we go, RMS map. This is, let's see, let me see all. This is PACTOR. This is all the PACTOR locations worldwide. There's RDOP, which is a different protocol. There's VARA, which is the newest protocol. This replaced, a lot of you will remember WinMore. This replaced WinMore. WinMore has been phased out in favor of VARA. VARA for HF is much faster. It has military-grade robustness, and the difference in time it takes to send and receive over VARA is just night and day different from what you had with Winmore, which was the other one. And then there's a VARA FM. From the website, you can also get CMS status. This is all the CMS nodes. Here's propagation. So there's a lot of tools available to see what's going on with the system. Here's a list of the RMS servers around the world: Switzerland, Germany, Dominican Republic, Italy, the US, a lot in the US, Norway. Anyway, you get the point. So all of that's available at winlink.org under tools. So let me find what I did with my graphic here. There we are. So back to our diagram here. So you connect through either HF using PACTOR, now VARA, robust packet, UHF, VHF using packet, PACTOR, whatever method, or you can connect directly with Telnet, which is basically it's a connection directly through the internet to the CMS, and that allows you to send and receive if you have internet. So let's say that you wanted to use Winlink as your primary email because it has your call sign and you want to keep that traffic separate from your regular email through work or whatever. You could set up and use Winlink as your email service and send it through Telnet, using the internet at your house, or you could do that over HF, VHF, or UHF. So down here on the bottom row, we have computers attached to a radio at your house, and you compose an email, you send it through the computer, it translates it into an HF signal, or VHF or UHF, sends it up to the RMSs, and then from the RMSs it goes to the common message servers, and then out to any email recipient anywhere in the world. So the person on the other end of this email does not have to be a ham or a Winlink user at all. It goes to any email address. I recently also found out, because you know how it is, we get bunches of emails at work. I get probably in upwards of a couple of hundred a day after filtering that are not valid email that I want to do anything with. And so there are times when I check it during the day, but if my boss wants me to see an email he sent, he also shoots me a text. Well, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but every cell phone company out there, like in our case Verizon, has a way for you to send a text via email. So you would send, in the case of a Verizon customer, you have to do a little research to find out what your particular carrier's interface is. But in my case, it's my cell phone number at vtext.com, and it will send a text from my email. If I email that email address, my telephone number at vtext.com, it will show up as a text on my phone. So, or in case of my brother in Portland, Oregon, I can shoot him an email and then send him a text through email saying, hey, check your email. He also has the ability then, if I set the whitelist up properly, to respond to that text, and it will go back through and come back to my Winlink account. So it's really a powerful tool. One of the ways in which I can envision using this in IMCOM situations, emergency communication situations, is post-disaster, where you have people who need to get health and welfare messages out to their family to let them know they survived the storm. And rather than having to generate a tremendous number of radiograms, you can set up with a Winlink connection and take messages from your neighbors or whatever, wherever you happen to be, and send them to the email addresses. Their family can then reply that they got the message, and that, that's a tremendous opportunity for public service. Plus which, there are circumstances in which you don't necessarily want to use voice for certain tactical things, like a list of needed supplies at a shelter. There's a story that has circulated that a operator in a shelter had been given a list of needed supplies by the shelter manager, and when he inquired as to where the supplies were, they said, well, we've got everything together except the chopsticks. And he said, chopsticks? We didn't ask for chopsticks. Well, what they had asked for over HF was a case of chapstick for the folks in the shelter, and what they got was, what they received verbally was chopsticks, and so they were held up on the rest of their supplies trying to find chopsticks, and nobody, I guess, bothered to ask why anybody in a shelter needed chopsticks. But anyway, so there are certain circumstances in which, email might be a better solution for long lists than voice operation would be. So now I've gotten off my notes like a lot of preachers will do. Let me get back to my notes now and see what I'm missing. Okay. So let's talk about the application software just a little bit here. Let me get this minimized so I can get back to it. That's that and that. Okay, this is a look at my Outlook email. I'm sure all of you are familiar with what an email program looks like. That's my Outlook email. Here is the Winlink Express email system. Now, Winlink Express works slightly differently than typical email does, in that normally when you compose a message, so if I open up to compose a message, here's an open message window. I will type in an email address. Somebody unlink or unmute. Rob, not Rob. Ron, unmute and give me your email address, please.
The my email address for, in fact, I'd like you to send it to Winlink if you don't mind.
Okay.
ki5fr@winlink.org.
Okay. All right. So this is a test email during demo. Thanks for being my guinea pig. Okay, so I've composed this email. However, normally in an email program, you will have a send button, and when you send it, it immediately sends it out through SMTP, usually Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Well, instead of a send button, what you have is a post to outbox. You'll notice now that I've posted that outbox has one message in it. There it is. And what it's going to do is it's going to hold all your messages in the outbox, and then you'll collect your outgoing messages until you're ready to activate your connection, either through Telnet or through HF or VHF, whatever, and it'll send them all in one session. When you log on to, and I can't show you this because of the limitations of doing this with Zoom, but when you log on to a site, you select, when you log on to, I should rephrase this, when you log on to one of the RMSs, the radio message servers, you have a list. In fact, let me just do something here. Just bear with me a second. I want to change this off of Winlink for a moment. and we'll go to var HF for a moment. Okay, now when I go to establish a connection, it'll open a session. Now, I'm obviously not connected to the computer, but what I wanted to show you is this. It opens up, this is the Winlink session for the VARA protocol, and there's channel selection. When you open channel selection, it's going to give you a list of all of the radio message servers within a given distance of your location. Here's the distance in miles, the bearing in degrees. I have my font a little bit larger, but it gives you two things. It gives you the distance in miles. It gives you the frequency in hertz. Hang on a second. Let me make this a little larger. Well, that didn't do what I wanted it to. Hang on. Just a moment. I'll drop this down a little bit. Let's see if that does it for us. Okay. So what it does is it gives you the call sign of the RMS, the frequency in hertz, the mode that it's using, the grid square that it's in, the hours of operation, what type of RMS it is, whether it's public or private, the distance in miles. You'll notice that AK4SK is within 11 miles of my current location. This is because when you set up the software, you tell it where you are. It also gives me a bearing. So if I'm using my beam on 20 meters or 40 meters or whatever, and I want to aim my beam in the direction of where this station is, I can do that by means of knowing what bearing it is. And then there's a path reliability estimate and a path quality estimate. And it ranks these based upon a set of criteria known only to Winlink that sometimes is and sometimes is not accurate. You know, for instance, that if you're on HF and a station is too close to you, you can't talk to it, even though it's not very far away. Your signal's going over top of it. So just because it's got high reliability numbers doesn't necessarily mean you can make the connection. Plus which, it may be busy. So at any rate, this list can be updated via the internet or via radio. And it will automatically prompt you to update it every so many days. I'm going to go back to Telnet here in just a minute instead of I didn't mean to minimize it all the way. There we go. Sorry about this. I'm going to go back to Telnet because that's what I'm going to use to demonstrate the send and receive on this. So here we're sitting with an outbox with one. Let's see how far I am. This will work. I can do it now. Well, before I demonstrate this, let me talk a little more about a couple of things. Let's talk about the limitations of Winlink first of all. With UHF and VHF, obviously, if you're on UHF or VHF with this, you can use it, but it's going to have a proximity limitation. You're going to have to be within line of sight of the gateway, whereas with HF, you can reach out beyond a regional disaster area. You can reach out 300, 400, 500 miles depending upon band conditions. That is a limitation, though, of HF is band conditions. Also, you are limited to a message size of not more than 120 kilobytes. And then you also have different throughput limitations on different modes, although, as I said, VARA protocol is a great improvement. Now, you have some advantages with Winlink, some upsides. One of them is a familiar interface, as I've shown you. This works about like a typical email program does. It's portable. There is even a setup for Raspberry Pi. If any of you have messed with Raspberry Pi is quite popular among amateur radio operators. Winlink does not work on Raspberry Pi, but PAT Papa Alpha Tango is a software program that is basically an email application for Winlink in Raspberry Pi's operating system that you can install there. It's bidirectional with regular email, which means you can use regular internet email. It can be internet independent, and then also there are a great number of forms for various served agencies. One of them would be, for instance, if you're familiar with ICS 213, which is a general message form that's commonly used in a lot of agencies, like FEMA uses it, Red Cross uses it, and it's just a standard message form. And you can import these templates into Winlink and send that message. And at the other end, if the other end has the same template installed, that message will come out when printed, displaying as an actual ICS 213. But if the recipient is not set up for that, it just shows up as a regular text email, still formatted similarly. So it's still readable and understandable, but you can actually do this. You can, if you're working in a shelter or a situation where you're dealing with a served agency that needs that format, you can, if you have a printer there, you can print them off an ICS 213, honest to goodness, and hand them that message format. It's something that they're used to seeing, a format they're familiar with. Now, we said it has 120 kilobyte maximum. Let me just give you some things to compare that to. So the maximum message size is 120 kilobytes. Winlink, a Winlink document like the ICS 213 is an HTML attachment. If they did it as a Word document, just the Word document alone as an attachment is 74 kilobytes out of the 120 as a maximum. If you send a PDF, it's 107 kilobytes. However, if you use the HTML format, it's 1.2 kilobytes as an attachment. So that ICS 213, if you send it as a PDF, would be 107 kilobytes by itself, regardless to how much text was in it. Could be more, but at least 107, whereas Winlink's HTML attachments for ICS 213s are 1.2 kilobytes. So it's much better use of the available message size. So we've composed a message and we've got it posted to the outbox. And now what I want to do is I want to demonstrate sending this. So I'm going to go back to my inbox, but notice we have an outbox message here. You'll notice there are no new messages. So we're going to open our session, and this is going to be a Telnet session. Now I'll direct your attention to this bottom window. When I hit start, this is going to happen very quickly. It takes longer with HF or with VHF, UHF, any RF mode. So I wish I could demonstrate that, but it's quite quick with Telnet. So it's connecting to the CMS, and it's giving you a log of everything that it's doing, and we'll talk through this. It's connecting to the common message server. This is the WL2K message server. That's Winlink 2000. It's from me using RMS Express. So there's a message here. It's sending out one that I sent to Ron. And it's receiving one, presumably, that Ron sent to me. Yep, it's from KI5FR. And then so it's message sent is one, message received is one. Here's the total time. Here's the total bytes per minute. Bytes received, bytes sent was 208. And this is not kilobytes, it's bytes. And bytes received is 186. He was briefer than I was, and it disconnected at this time. When you log on to one of the RMSs, it will also tell you, most of them give you an hour per 24-hour period. And when you log in, you have an hour that day to use that particular RMS. And it tracks how many times you log in and what your total usage is. And when you get to an hour, you have to either use another one. So, but an hour is normally plenty of time within a 24-hour period. So that is what it looks like to send. Then it comes in. You notice my outbox is now empty. My inbox has one unread message. Here it is. This is the one from Ron. It says this is from Winlink Express, and it's from Ron KI5FR. I can reply to him directly and send it, post it to the outbox. And now my outbox has one in it. When I connect again and I start, it'll send that one out of the inbox, or out of the outbox rather, and it's going to him. So that is about what I have for you. Does anybody have any questions? Everybody's muted. So nobody has any questions? Steve? Everything good on your end? Okay. Who was that?
Well, good. This is Bob. I think I'm unmuted. I don't see anything on my screen. And I also sent you a message from my email, and I sent to KI4MIU at WL2K, and apparently you didn't get it. So what's going on there?
Yeah. Well, the address to send it to is winlink.org. So my call sign at winlink.org is what they're now using for email.
Well, I sent it wrong.
So
okay.
Yeah. But that's okay. I appreciate your effort. Anybody else? Questions?
Do you know if the EOCs are using this for emergency?
I don't know what they're using. However, I did talk to Steve, N4GXX, who had been talking to Neil, who is our EC, and they are going to be doing something to set up for this. If he's on, he might be able to answer that. I see him standing up.
So,
Hey, Steve.
can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
So I just had a question. You used a few acronyms. I think you said IMS and some other acronyms. Could you explain those?
I can. There are two that I use that I remember. One of them is CMS, Charlie Mike Sierra. That is Common Message Server. There are 5 of those. The other one is RMS, Romeo Mike Sierra, and that is a radio message server. And that is the node that you connect to with your radio to transfer it across using RF.
So basically from my end, what you're doing is connecting to a radio message server and in turn connecting to a common message server, and then you're out on the internet talking to somebody via email. Okay.
Right. Steve, N4GXX, do you have an answer on what the local EOCs are using?
Yeah, this is Steve. I was talking to Neil, and we're in the process of putting together a Winlink, actually a digital-only station. We got the old PS440 down there. It was used in the Shalimar EOC. And so Neil and I are working on putting that together as a digital-only station with Winlink being primary. And we're just at the beginning of it now. I had the computer at the house working on that. He's got the radio at his place working on it. So we should have something in a couple of weeks knowing where we're going.
So that's us. The question was, who's everybody using all the other emergency services associated with ham radio? Do you know, Steve?
At this time, it's kind of an ad hoc situation. I'm not sure what everybody else is using, I know FEMA and using the government shares, they're leaning more on the Winlink now for HF.
And the beauty of this is it really doesn't matter what they're using. If you need to connect through HF to an RMS and send them an email, you can do it, regardless of what they're using. It's a common email, just plain SMTP email. SMTP is Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. That's for Dave.
Hey, Bob,
Anybody else? Any other questions?
Bob, MEU, have you had any HF luck with the Freeport node?
No, that is the one that's 11 miles from where I'm sitting right now, and I'm assuming I seem to be overshooting it.
I've hit him on 75 a couple of times. I'm sorry, on 40 a couple of times, but it's a rarity. I usually wind up in Texas or up in the Midwest. Okay, back to you.
All right, somebody just shot me a regular email. Okay. Any other questions?